All right, welcome in everyone to today's Learning Lunch, Why Massachusetts Students Need Personal Finance as a Graduation Requirement. I'm Anthony Andronico from MASC. I wanted to thank our friends from the Financial Empowerment Network today for joining us for this presentation and for giving the presentation to all of you. They have a great lineup today, and so I think we'll just jump right in and I'll pass it over to my friend Scott from the Financial Empowerment Network to do introductions to his team and go from there. So, welcome.
Well, thank you, Anthony, and we thank the Mass Association of School Committees and Glenn Kuchar for providing us with this opportunity to engage in this discussion. My name's Scott Gild. I've served as a co-chair of the Financial Empowerment Network, powered by the Midas Collaborative, since 2008, and when I was director of the economic education at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. Our 50-plus all-volunteer statewide work group includes a broad coalition of passionate advocates and interested parties who meet monthly to advance our mission. Dave?
Thank you, Scott. I'm Dave Florine, the co-chair of the Financial Empowerment Network, and have worked with Scott again since 2008, back when I was the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs and lobbyist for the Mass Bankers Association. Together, along with our coalition, we've been working aggressively towards securing comprehensive financial literacy programs for Massachusetts school children. All of us today, including our full panelists, have extensive K through 12 and/or college-level teaching experience and local government involvement. A couple of brief highlights. Massachusetts, as some of you may know, enacted its first financial literacy law in 2018. To assist local districts in implementing that law, the legislature provided $250,000 in annual grants for 5 years to 74 local school districts to help advance financial literacy. Today, now nearly 100 high schools offer credit for life programs. Some of you may be involved in them. Many other states have taken the steps that we will discuss today. Now let me introduce our presenters. Julie Beckham, Associate Vice President in Financial Education Development at Rockland Trust, and Marianne Clancy, Senior Vice President at the Institution for Savings in Newburyport. Julie and Marianne, the deck is yours.
Thanks so much, Dave and Scott. We appreciate having this audience today to talk about this very important topic. I am here with my fellow financial education advocates today, and we're excited to tell you that this Zoom will be recorded and that we have an open chat and people manning the chat from our crew. So we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask your questions. And we also are going to be mindful to leave time at the end so that you'll be able to ask your questions live. So with that in mind, I will be going through these slides with my colleague in advocacy, Marianne Clancy. So I'll just give it a start right now. So basically, the problem with when we have talking about financial education in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is that access to financial education is currently inequitable. Financial literacy is taught in many cities and towns in Massachusetts, but not consistently and not equitably, which means that we are graduating students in the Commonwealth who are unprepared for life's financial situations. In fact, as of this year, 2025, only 20 of the 475 Massachusetts public high schools make personal finance a graduation requirement. You can see on this map of our wonderful state that these yellow stars indicate the areas where the students are getting this gold standard, a standalone personal finance semester-long course before graduating. And so out of the 351 cities and towns that we have throughout the Commonwealth, only the towns that have a yellow star are getting this gold standard. Some facts about this. As of January 2026, nationwide, something is shifting. 30 states have enacted laws requiring personal finance education in high schools. And unfortunately, like I said, Massachusetts is not one of them. NextGen Personal Finance is a national nonprofit that has been advocating for this sweeping change throughout the nation. And we, as advocates of financial education, really believe that this gold standard is what is required in our Commonwealth, because 6.8% of public high schoolers are getting this gold standard and the rest are not. This is backed by the research at the Champlain College Center for Financial Literacy, which has done extensive research in this gold standard and not only rates Massachusetts with an F when it comes to providing financial education to our public high school students, but predicts that in 2028 we will still have that grading of an F, which would be one of only 2 states that has that grading in 2028 based on their extensive research. So this is not what the people of Massachusetts want. We know this. We live here and we love to be the best and the brightest. And in fact, when surveyed by the Massachusetts K-12 Graduation Council, which Governor Healey has assembled to implement Massachusetts education standards, which I'm sure you're aware of, 93% of survey respondents said they want high school graduates to complete a personal finance course before graduating. 93% agreement. This agreement was more than any other subject in that survey, including subjects like English and math. 93% of people agreed on something, which is just noteworthy in general because most people don't agree on much. So we have consensus here. Personal finance as a requirement ranked higher than any other coursework area. And this is consistent not just in that survey of teachers, administrators, parents, and students, but also of young adults 18 to 29 who are actually feeling the effects of not having that semester-long class of personal finance. The 82% said they wished that their high school had offered financial literacy instruction because as they navigate their lives and try to live their best financial lives, they are finding that they are not equipped. What the 2025 K-12 statewide graduation council interim report also says is that the graduation council identifies that financial literacy should be a core graduation competency. It does suggest that flexible delivery, maybe a standalone course, maybe embedded instruction, or maybe approved experiential learning. But it doesn't give an absolute mandate on this. We are waiting until June when the council makes their final decision. But at this point, the survey is not recommending any one course. But what does the research show? As this committee is currently in meetings, what is the research telling us? The research is telling us that students will graduate high school with financial literacy knowledge and skills to make personal and professional decisions that align with their goals and promote their financial success. But how do we get there? We get there by motivating the rest of our advocates and educators within our Commonwealth to really back the research proven mandate of having a guaranteed semester-long class of personal finance. And we have comprehensive support in this area from all of these organizations listed, from mass bankers to nonprofits like Women's Money Matters and national nonprofits like Next Gen Personal Finance, to more than 50 individuals, including some who are on this call supporting this initiative today. We have pending legislation, which is so exciting. The House legislation 4670 passed the Massachusetts House unanimously in the fall. A bill in the Senate was referred to the Ways and Means Committee, and a bill that establishes financial literacy trust fund and requires personal financial literacy instruction in middle school or high school. These bills are moving. But the problem is that none of this so far is exactly what the research is is pointing towards. So the problem with H4670 is that it does not require that standalone course. Again, the standalone course reflects the realities of today's world. As you know, we're graduating our students into a world that is changing rapidly, and the financial struggles that students face today are struggles that students have not faced before. They're facing, oops, sorry about that. Go back one slide. They're facing student loan and debt like never before, credit access. They're facing online and sports betting, digital banking and payment apps, buy now, pay later apps, online scams, identity thefts, and the rising costs of housing and healthcare and education. So a statewide requirement acknowledges that financial literacy is no longer optional, but it is absolutely necessary to keep not only our kids financially literate, but our kids and our students in Massachusetts financially safe. Embedded only models are now which is also something that's talked about in this realm of requiring financial literacy. And what I mean by that is embedding some topics of financial literacy in courses that already exist, like maths or civics or history even. But a minority of states are using this embedded model because the research shows that it is not as effective. In fact, a standalone class, as research shows, is 6 times more effective than embedding bits and pieces of a comprehensive financial education into an existing course. Many of these states who are reconsidering strengthening their approach, if they have done embedded in the past, because they know that this standalone course is the most effective and is backed by research. I'm going to, at this point, turn this over to my colleague in advocacy, Marianne Clancy.
Great. Welcome, everybody. And I'm going to take it from here. I want to interject here just briefly that it's notable that you have 2 bankers talking to you about these issues today. And it's because of what we see every single day when we're within the bank environment. We're seeing young homeowners come in and not know anything about their credit scores or that it would affect them. We're seeing, young adults trying to come in and, take out a loan, but have very poor credit scores and don't really understand that's going to affect them down the road. So it's really important for us as bankers, as well as educators, to see that this happens and that this is a reality. So what we've done here is on the next couple of screens, we've compared the differences between a statewide requirement to have an embedded course to have a standalone course as opposed to an embedded or a local option where different school districts can choose to offer it on their own, which is what is happening now. Really, the biggest point for this is that a standalone course is fairer and much more equitable to all of our students than allowing it to be as an elective or doing it that way. It just really gives every student the ability, no matter where they're located in the Commonwealth, to have a personal finance course. And not only just to get the course, but to have a course that across the board includes all of the information consistently that students really need to address as they move on from high school into the world of work or college. It's an equity issue. It's a huge equity issue for us right now that this would address if we had a standalone state requirement. Another point to make is a standalone course provides greater consistency and accountability across the board. If you create the expectation that it is a core life skill, which it absolutely is, then students treat it, as a regular course, something that they need to take and need to pass and need to understand. I say this all the time when I go into classrooms and talk to the high schoolers. They're required to take certain courses like math or science or English or, civics, but they are not required to take a personal finance course. And that is, the reality is that personal finance is something that every one of us is going to use throughout our lives. So it's really, really critical that they get that. it allows it really allows us to measure how they're doing as well. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it gives if we have consistent curriculum, it just means that it's a much better way to measure it than if it allows, each district to offer it on their own. A standalone course signals that it is an important issue that we're teaching. And I don't think any of us on the call would argue that learning how to balance our budgets and create, strong credit scores and take out a loan and do all of that is not important. It's critical, particularly now in this current environment, for our young people to understand all of these complicated issues about managing their money. It's really directly correlated to their success going forward. We'll show you some numbers in a few minutes, but it really allows them to learn much more about finance rather than to just have a half-year elective course on some of this, or for some schools and many schools, as you saw, to just have people come in and talk about it on a inconsistent basis. Standalone course can really reduce the long-term social and economic costs. It really helps the students understand how to avoid some of those mistakes about bad credit scores or, taking out payday loans or all of the things that they have no idea what those, what the negatives are for some of those things. This quote this fact at the bottom just floors me when I see it. A student who takes a one-semester high school personal finance course can gain an estimated $100,000 to $127,000 in lifetime benefits. This is a fact that came up in a study done by Next Gen Personal Finance. So that is an incredible piece of information that we use going forward that talks about the success rate for students who take these standalone courses. So show me the money. So, we're certainly not going to pretend that, implementing a standalone course is not going to come without some responsibility for all school districts. That is your job as school committee members, and we want to make sure that we address that today. Carly Urban, who's someone that we have read a lot of information from and something that we will provide to you in the addendum as well, did a study and really found that there's no significant increase in district spending by adopting personal finance as a requirement. It typically doesn't raise the budget, she has found. Often there's no additional staffing needed at all because the staffing has already existed in your districts and in your schools. They're teaching it. Some of them are teaching it as well already. We just upped the ante on that a little bit. And more importantly, there is a high return on investment. Go back to that number that I showed you on that previous screen. Helping students improve their financial know-how and behaviors is a critical piece for these students going forward. We found, we've done a lot of research, and there are ways to manage any kinds of costs that districts have for implementing a standalone course. A lot of your districts already have business courses or finance courses that are already in there, and that can be adapted to a standalone course. There's a lot of electives out there across the state happening right now that can just be adapted or expanded to be into a standalone course. There are so many curriculum resources. We're going to touch on some of those in a couple of screens, but there are free resources out there already that you can tap into. Same along this teacher certification and teacher training pieces. There are resources that already exist out there, and what we've seen with other states that have been doing that is that's how they get this done, is by using a lot of the resources that are already out there. And then we just get down to that final fact, which says that the state did fund, the implementation of civics and genocide into the core curriculum. And we think that it's well worth it to do the same with personal finance. Sorry, clicking too fast. I love this story, and I'm going to read it really briefly. I know Sue is on the call and available to answer some questions afterwards, but Swampscott has done an incredible job of implementing personal finance into their curriculum over the course of a number of years. In this, you can see that she started out with 1 or 2 elective sections with 25 students. They've expanded that over the years to 6 or 7 sections that really give personal finance know-how to almost 700 students within that. And they have one teacher teaching all of those sections right there. So I think it's a really important testimonial from a school like Swampscott, who's done this really well, pulling all sorts of resources together. There's also existing money sources right now, and we're hoping that will grow. One of the legislation out there right now calls for a financial trust fund to be included in the legislation, so that there will be a trust fund out there for resources for students, for teachers to use in school districts if they need to fund some of these changes. And I think it opens the door, and I say this, speaking as a bank who has a charitable foundation, we give a lot of money to educational resources, and I think there's an opportunity to get a lot more public-private donations into this trust fund that will help this be implemented. Other funding streams are out there currently as well. There's a Financial Education Innovation Fund from the State Office of Economic Empowerment. Currently a lot of these resources are used for Credit for Life fairs, but they can certainly be transitioned to use for, teacher training, as they are as well. There's some DESE grants out there already. There's a lot of grants that are to be had out there, funding sources that are already established that can help implement some of this into your curriculums. And these are some of the curriculum resources that we were talking about. This is just because I only had 6 squares. So this is why you're only seeing this number. There's more. Fit Money is a great nonprofit that offers these free resources to all school districts, K-12. Next Gen Personal Finance, you've heard us already mention Next Gen a number of times, just a phenomenal resource for educators throughout the country who need these kinds of resources. Junior Achievement is great. Jumpstart Coalition. Some of these are probably familiar to some of your educators already, but there are resources out there that can be tapped by all districts to help you get started down the road for this. There's also some great unbiased teacher training resources. Again, some of the same organizations that offer the curriculum are also offering teacher training because they know that it's really important to do. So these are some of the programs, just a sampling of what's out there right now that can help districts start to plan this transition. The other critical information that exists out there is, what have other states done? And you heard Julie mention at the beginning, there are 31 states out there that have done this before us. And that number is growing all the time. So they've already done their legwork. They've done the homework. And there are some great examples out there. California, which just came out with a phenomenal personal finance curriculum that you could basically take and overlay onto some of your districts. Virginia, Kentucky, Colorado, great models out there for using free resources to build this kind of curriculum. What we don't think is desirable, and you may, if anybody's been following personal finance implementation into states, is New York's model. They did adopt a personal finance phased in requirement to go in between 26 and 27. But they haven't followed that or begun that with any kind of legislation that requires a high school course for graduation. And we think the two things need to go hand in hand. They do cover K-12. But they definitely don't go as deep as they should. They haven't actually advocated for a standalone course. And again, as you've continued to hear from us, it is the gold standard. Standalone, by all accounts, by all research done, is the way to go in order to get this done. I'm not going to read through all of these for you because we have several pages of great quotes from not just, Governor Healy and State Treasurer Goldberg about the importance of that, but also some upcoming screens about what teachers and educators think. Really, really critical pieces of this. John Keenan, president of Salem State University, is a great example. We went in, our bank went in and did a Credit for Life fair for incoming freshmen, college freshmen last September. And it was phenomenal because the amount of information that incoming college students don't know about financial education is just mind-blowing. So he's a huge advocate for doing this at the high school level. Students, superintendents of schools have already spoken out on this, and you, as well as school committee members. And again, we're going to be sending this out to you afterwards so you can read through some of those as well. I think the most telling pieces of this presentation is what the students are saying. These are students that are getting a taste of financial education here and there, and then finding that they need lots more. Sophie is a member of our financial education, financial empowerment network, and feels so strongly about this that she's written a book for young adults, for young elementary school students, that she is trying to get purchased and implemented across the state into a number of school districts because she thinks it's so important. More seniors, students on listening tours that talked about how important it was for them and how left off they feel because they don't get this currently right now in their schools. Again, you'll have the opportunity to do this. This particular student from Brooklyn High School wrote an op-ed in the Boston Globe that was published last Christmas. Unfortunately, not a lot of people read the newspaper on Christmas Day, but some of their insights was just incredible. They took this information because they didn't have it as a graduation requirement. And Brookline did a lot of legwork, the students at Brookline High School, so that they could get this offered in their school. That's how strongly they felt about the importance of that being included in their curriculum. So what's next? A couple of things, right? The K-12, the Graduation Council has to finish their work. They've published an interim report that includes financial education and several other things, but they haven't introduced their final recommendations, which we hope to see in June of this year. Then they've got to do some work with that. How are they going to implement that into the curriculum, into the standards? How are they going to do that? Simultaneously, the legislature is undertaking bills, legislation in order to get this as a graduation requirement. You've heard us talk about the House bill. We think it's a fabulous first start, but it doesn't go far enough because it doesn't mandate a standalone offering requirement, a standalone course. We're excited that the Senate bill does include a full semester standalone course. That's very, very important, and that's exciting that the Senate has gone ahead and done that as well on their own. So as we wrap up and start to get to your questions and some discussion, the natural question is, what can you do as school committee members, as superintendents of school, as educators? I think the first thing is that you look at your own districts and you see what's happening right now. Do you know if there's a financial education course being offered in your schools? Maybe ask that question a little bit about what are we doing currently to do that. And then again, research. There's so much research out there right now. You do not have to recreate the wheel and develop this from the bottom up. So many districts and so many states have already done the legwork, can show you exactly how to do it. Maybe start a pilot if you don't have it. If you don't have a program right now in your school district, start a pilot. Or if you do have one, but it's an elective course, maybe expand that to a couple of additional segments, allowing more students to participate in those kinds of courses. What we've heard a lot about is that if they're electives, there are students in there, but they can't handle all of the students who want to take it. So expanding those would be extremely helpful as well. And then how you can lead, encourage your educators to take advantage of some of these conferences and summer workshops and PD credits and free resources out there to learn how to do some of this as well. Because they're out there and they're existing it, and some school districts are using them really well to do that right now. And I think always, and I say this as a former 10-year school committee person, it begins with policy in your districts, right? Whether you can help create the urgency for this by making it a priority in your own districts, whether it's a non-binding resolution or a meeting with your legislators to talk about the importance of it and importance of not only the legislation but the resources that go along with it. Bring it into your committee structure. Is there a committee? Do you have an education committee I know in Newburyport, we always had a joint ed committee that had members of the city council and school committee members working together. This is a perfect topic for them as well. And last, but certainly not least, engage parents in the community. They can be your biggest advocates when something like this happens. And we constantly hear from parents, the question, why didn't we have this, for my students when I was going there? Why don't, I wished I had this when I was in school. So it's certainly a topic that everybody feels very, very strongly about. So engage them and help them fight the battle with us for that. So just as a quick summary, and Julie, please feel free to jump in on this with me too. We were asking for two things today, certainly to recognize the importance of a financial education mandate in schools, but don't leave it there. Don't leave it there. Bring it all the way to the gold standard, which is a standalone semester, which is, again, by all reports, the most successful way we can teach our kids about money today.
Yes, Marianne, I love this last slide for so many reasons. One, it creates an opportunity for Massachusetts to not only reach for this gold standard through the ways that we just illustrated, through the legislature, through the K through 12 graduation council, but it also gives you as school committee members in various districts throughout the Commonwealth the opportunity to get ahead of that. Because as we all know, on the state level, things take time, and on the local level, things can be achieved a little bit more quickly. And our goal is to be equitable so that every student in Massachusetts gets this gold standard and gets this potential $127,000 savings throughout their lifetime based on research of having this class. But in the meantime, what lies in your hands is the opportunity to do this first in your district so that when, and I do say when, because we're optimistic as we are fierce advocates, when this does become a requirement, you're ahead of the game and you've already figured out the kinks and manipulated the schedules and done all the things that's, we have folks here on the line today, like Sue from Swampscott, who could speak to, moving a requirement down to the middle school to make room for the high school. And we can speak to some of the questions that were in the chat regarding funding and curriculum. So at this point in our presentation, with roughly 25 minutes left, we would like to address some of the questions in the chat and let others have the opportunity to make comments and ask questions as well. So Kenzie, I know you've been manning the chat, and I think maybe that would be a good opportunity for you to introduce yourself and kind of moderate this portion.
Yep. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today. Marianne, Julie, that was a really great presentation you put on. It was very insightful. I am really glad to be here with everyone. My name is Kenzie Martin. I'm a representative from the Midas Collaborative. We help co-lead the Financial Empowerment Network, and financial education in high schools is one of the three core pillars that we support at the Midas Collaborative. We're a statewide nonprofit that supports, again, financial education in high schools for students, advocacy, and match savings. So just enough about me. Let's jump into the first question that we have here. And thank you guys so much for answering this in chat. But for anyone who's not able to see it, the question came from Glenn Kocher. His question was, many baby boomers are finding themselves without enough income to take care of their needs. It is a failure to plan financially. Does the plan for financial literacy include the importance of savings and knowing the various strategies for long-term savings plannings, such as IE, IRAs, Roths, 403Bs, etc.? Anyone on the panel want to jump on that?
I'd be happy with this, David. And Glenn, absolutely an excellent question. And two quick responses. One, the Senate bill 2988 that we reference, filed by Senator Feeney and now before, not only does have graduation requirement, but has something pretty unique, and that is creation of regional financial education hubs and a lot of focus on adult education. You raised an absolutely key point. And let me also emphasize, yesterday I had the privilege of being interviewed for an hour with a senior at Andover High School where I live. And it was triggered by a student that went through the Credit for Life Fair last year. He's doing his capstone project for senior year on financial ed. And it was also triggered by exactly the question you raised, by his grandparents who ran in or made, as he put it, some unwise financial decisions and are now in a bind. And absolutely, the curriculum that we talk about and the legislation that's now in the Senate address those very, very good issues that you brought up. Thanks for doing so.
And I want to add one great answer, Dave. One of the things we talk about a lot when we go out with is the trickle down effect, right? Well, there's a trickle up effect as well. So when you're in districts that need additional assistance, a lot of times if we're teaching students that, they go home and they share that with their families. And that is what, I've heard that from so many organizations that do that, that it is something that can affect not just the student in the school that's learning this, but the entire family.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know what's
Yes.
happening with my microphone, but this is Scott. I've taught in high school and I've taught in college. I've used material from Next Gen Personal Finance, the new emerging Intuit education. Not only does it get to the grammar of finance, which is one of the things the students have to address, but it really gets into the math and then the comparisons. Because using those materials, it's good to know what they are, but you actually can granularly get down and compare between a Roth IRA and a regular IRA, or a 401b or a 403b for teachers, etc. So that, yeah, it really does cover this material. And again, depending on how much time you have, and again, this is the issue of granularity, and the reason that we need to have a standalone course is because you're going to need to dig down in many of those opportunities to provide students with real life activities, experiences, and actually filling out the real forms so that they're prepared to do that as they go to the work in their military or college.
Thanks, Scott. Okay. Moving on to the next question, Jody, I will have you up next after one question that came through in the chat from Mike Lucas. Thank you, Mike, for your question. We need funding for more teachers so that we can offer this as a full course to every high school student. If not, we would have to remove some other valuable offering. Love to have every kid do this. We offer as an elective right now, but only one section. We will incorporate some of the units into similar classes. Does anyone want to, on the panel, talk towards funding for this?
I know you do, David.
Well, I'm more than happy to jump in too. I mean,
Yeah.
Dave, and I'll
Just a couple of things. First of all, in terms of teacher training, many of the nonprofits that have their curricula, Council on Economic Education, Next Gen, Jumpstart, JA, Intuit, and Visa. Visa is not listed, but they're also very much involved. All offer, I won't use the word accredited, but very credible, well-vetted curricula and free teacher training. And I emphasize its quality. In many cases, in almost all the cases, they also get PDPs for taking the courses. Many of them are remote, some are hybrid, some are in person. So the issue of getting teachers trained over a 3-year implementation period is really pretty is well addressed. We've put together a pretty comprehensive data sheet that CE has provided us, and NextGen is about to, I believe, that tracks which teachers, not by name but by district, have been involved. And as soon as that's all together, we want to share it with you. That shows how much is already there. And something else I was going to mention. Go ahead, Mary Ann.
Well, I was just going to add to that, Dave, is that while, this isn't going to start from day one. So,
No.
You're going to need to piece things together, which is where the free resources and the curriculum comes in, is while you're training teachers to be able to offer this within your district. There are already resources out there. There are already great curriculum plans out there that you can take right off the shelf and implement while you're learning how to do that. So I think it's going to be a multifaceted, implementation period, which is why many states that have adopted this don't say, okay, we've passed it, we're going to start it in September. They say we've passed it, and while we prepare for it, it's going to be implemented in 2 or 3 years down the road. And until that time happens, we can start the process with the free curriculum that's out there.
Yeah, 3 years seems to be the sweet spot of, and you look at the California guide, you look at some of the other states that are well far ahead of us. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. And many of the states are the same kind of structure with local district management and control of schools. And we know that's also a significant issue.
If I could interject, and I'd like to just add on to what's already said, is that we've actually done some projections looking at 2-year, 3 to 4 year, and 5-year implementations. And again, we think the sweet spot is at 3 years. But we realize that there are multiple steps one has to take, and we can share that with folks about how we're thinking. And maybe you could give us feedback about, are you out of your mind? Or this actually makes some sense. Oh, actually, this could work. That's one. The second is the bills that we support have a financial literacy trust fund in them. And that means there will be no unfunded mandate. We do not support an unfunded mandate. And we're also working with nonprofits like NextGen and Council for Economic Education. And we're having conversations with bankers and other private folks who could contribute to that public-private funding a resource that is stipulated in each one of the bills that we support, which is establishing a financial literacy trust fund controlled by, observed by, and vetted by DESE. And I forgot my point, Dave, so I'm at the same point you are.
Well,
I'll hand off.
let me go back to that, because actually I would like to ask the school committee or superintendent participants on the call, what other than teacher, teacher, we think, let me put it this way. Our understanding is that the curriculum issue and the teacher training issues are a non-cost item or very minimal because of what's out there. But we would like to hear from you as to what other implementation issues that you foresee or might be concerned about in your districts.
And Kenzie, this might be a good opportunity to uplift Mike Lucas's comment, which if you're able to speak, your comment. Mm-hmm.
Hey guys. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to it. So in a high school, right, we only have so many teachers. We're a very small high school in Oxford, 400 students.
Yeah.
So we have so many teachers. We did get an innovative pathway program. We have a business program, a business teacher, which is great, but we're building that program, which is awesome for our kids. We brought that in with DESE. It's been very helpful. It was an incredible experience. Sorry, you can't make this stuff up. My phone's ringing. But the problem is I would love every child to do this. And I know Jody's on the call. She's done amazing work at the high school I was at for a long time, from Country Bank, but Credit for Life program is amazing. But in order to have this be a full course that you're saying is the gold standard, I would then have to take a teacher, and we've exploded our AP program as well, a teacher that teaches something else and eliminate that. And we're down to, we don't have anything that's not valuable for our kids before they graduate. Yeah. So the problem again is there any way to get more teaching bodies if this is really an initiative that you really want to have happen to be the gold standard? We're going to do it. We have one section for seniors that are interested that we offer them. We have an amazing business teacher who's going to put free units from your curriculums. Those curriculums are great. That's a huge problem, right? The free curriculum is a huge help to us, especially smaller schools. But it's really about the number of bodies you have. So, and then I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think you brought up really great points, Mike. And, uniquely to your district, and I think that is something worth sharing, is that each district is unique and has unique challenges. And being a small school is one of those challenges in this circumstance. And I think that it comes back to, you said that you have all the requirements and all the curriculum is valuable. And I believe that, like, that's absolutely true. And I'm sure it works. And I think this is when we really get into I guess, the meat and potatoes of the value of personal finance and in this changing modern world, in a world where these students are facing financial pressures and struggles, temptations, exploitation that we did not face at their age. So I think that's a tough discussion, because of course everything is valuable when you carefully, thoughtfully, painstakingly schedule a student's graduation requirements in your town, in your city. Again, so important. So I just think this class has to become part of that discussion in this modern world. And some of those priorities may have to be shifting. And I'm open, to have anyone else from our panel speak on that, or someone from who's listening who has kind of had to shift some of those structural priorities or curriculum priorities in their district.
This might be a great opportunity if Sue could take a second to talk about what her school has done. She's sort of our champion here on schools that have actually put something into place and as our gold standard for what we look to.
Sure. So I apologize. I'm sitting in the hallway because I have a classroom full of students. Right?
I love it.
Managing 5 things at once. But so when we implemented it, we decided that it was important enough that we shifted a graduation requirement down to the middle school. So our middle school now handles our computer applications requirement. So they handle that down there. And we also have a business and finance innovation pathway. We also have expanded AP. And it's worked out okay for us. We've been able to shift things that were a smaller priority for us, or a priority that could be taken care of at another school. And it's been okay because this is the priority for our students. This is what they need. We have great feedback from our students, from our parents, that this is more important for them to do than the other things. So nobody has lost anything. It's just been shifted to a younger grade.
Thank you, Sue.
Can I interject?
Kenzie, can I ask a question? As
Yes.
we're getting close to time,
Yes.
I wonder if there's any other key question in there, and then maybe if we can keep a copy of them, we can submit answers back, which would be
No more
helpful.
questions have come through chat, but we do have Jody in the lineup who had her hand raised. So if you want to go
Great.
next.
Okay, yeah, I'll be quick. I know it was a conversation prior to the past few, but huge shout out to Mike. He's been a great advocate for financial literacy. Him and I have partnered for years. So, Mike, thank you for your continued support and being the voice for financial education. We'll figure out something to get out to Oxford. I know we've chatted. You're still in my Credit for Life video that I show every spring to over 2,000 kids. So thank you for that. But no, I was just kind of going back to what Marianne and what Glenn had asked earlier about, that older generation. And it's like, it's a reality that kids are getting their information from TikTok. I have a Gen Z and a Gen Alpha myself. And I'm not saying it's all wrong, but many of it is unrealistic. So back to your point of like, yes, we vetted these programs. We make sure they're accurate, they are sustainable, and they're true. I've seen so much where it's like, that's so unrealistic. So we just want to continue to provide that relevancy and the realistic approach so it's sustainable and, again, accurate.
And thanks, Jody. I know how much work you do out there in Central Western Mass. It's terrific. One comment I would add to Mike said, when I was helping North Andover High School start their fair last year, one of the math teachers, as we were walking out, said to me, "I can't wait to teach a math class that the kids will actually use after graduation." And her comment stuck with me. I think that's, in kind of a nutshell, of as public officials, as educators, as concerned people, what's our obligation to pay it forward to our next generation? And I think what the math teacher said to me kind of summarizes it. I've asked a number of our adult children who are now 40 and their friends and spouses, how many of you, not to disparage calculus or some other courses, but how many have used courses like advanced math or some things and they all go, huh? How many of you wish you had personal finance? And they all raise their hand. And I think, in a sense, we're seeing a resurgence in civics because we've seen what's happened to our society because we didn't do it for 20 years. And I think that's the case here.
I think that's a really good point, Dave. I think that's a really good point. And I also don't want to lose sight of the resources out there when we talk about financial, because, I think I'm going to be thinking on Mike's comments, because I think for many districts, that is really going to be the most important issue. How do we fit all of these things? And I loved Susan's, when Sue described how they readjusted things and down to a lower level. I think that's a great option, but I don't want you to underestimate the support out there among the banks. So when we did our testimony last fall for that, we had mass bankers rally all of their members to sign a letter and submit testimony, because every one of those bank presidents feels that, they see it every single day. They see it, and they put their money where their mouth is. And I really believe that they will. So when we talk about the trust fund and we talk about private resources to get this off the ground, I think it's out there.
Yes.
And so if the only reason that we're hesitant about doing it is financial resources, let's get it established at the legislative level and get it into the graduation requirements with a 2 or 3 year down the road implementation plan. And then no one's going to abandon the schools. We're all going to make sure that we work to get those resources in there so that we can get this done right and correctly. My biggest fear is that, and we saw a little bit of this last year when the House passed the bill, and they were very proud of themselves. And it was the first time that we had a financial education bill, so we were proud of them too, except it didn't really have the meat to it. It did not require a standalone course. So not much was different than what is happening right now, where students and where districts get to pick and choose how they're going to do this. It's that important that, if we can rally and get this done, we will find the money to make the districts implement it with some mustard. So
thanks, Marianne. And just sorry, in keeping time, we have about 7 minutes left on the clock. I do want to open the floor up if anyone else out there has questions that they would like to pose. We had nothing else come through chat, but if anyone wants to come off mute.
Oh, that's good. So now I can talk.
Julie?
So,
No, let Julie go.
Sorry, Scott. I'm just going to be quick here. I just want to give a little banking perspective built on what Marianne just said. So in 2008, obviously, many of you know that there was a financial crisis and we were in a recession. And in 2011, then President Obama called upon all financial institutions to promote financial literacy within their communities. And that was my opening and many others on this call's opening to become financial educators through banks and different financial institutions. So what we've learned going into schools is we were trying to fill a gap. What we learned, it wasn't a gap, it was a chasm. It was a crater. And we might be just advocating ourselves out of a job here if this gets passed. But I think for the the better good, we're all fine with that because of the chasm in this crater, or well, I don't even know the earth term. I need to take more earth science to figure out what that canyon, I guess,
Yeah.
is. So I just wanted to give a little perspective from where we stand going in and doing these credit for life fairs and doing these programs in kindergarten through high schools and in the a greater community as well.
I would echo that, having been the lobbyist for the Association of Banks for a long time and seeing the same kind of things that the bankers said. I would also put on my political type hat, and for elected officials and the school committee members. And one of the quotes in the presentation is from a 9-year member here in my town and former chair, who's a huge booster of fairs. This is a win for school districts and school committees. Because as you saw in the presentation, 93% of the survey folks across every demographic respondents, ethnicity, income, racial, gateway city, wealthy suburb, whatever, across the board. It's what people would want. And we know how much public officials like, no, they don't like to, but they've been assailed for things. This is a unifier. And this is something that when it happens, they'll say, wow, people listened. And we all would love to see something where people feel that their government listens. End of my comments.
Thanks, David.
Okay, now I get a chance.
All right, you have 3 minutes.
No, Kenzie, I'm in. So the purpose of this is to have a discussion. We're letting you know sort of where we are in the process. We understand it's difficult, and it's difficult because schools are in such different places. I mean, Mike told us about the problems of small schools. Well, imagine if you're a rural school. Well, maybe we have to deal with virtual applications that have to have here. When NEFI gave a report about what's really important to get a sustainable and equitable, all students get access requirement, they talk about partnerships. And so we're hoping to develop the discussions that lead to a partnership with Massachusetts Association of School Committees, with the Mass Association of School Superintendents, with other organizations to be able to communicate why we so desperately believe the importance that research indicates that we have to have a standalone course so that it will be equitable, that every student, not an elective, every student has access to this. All right, that's all I wanted to say.
That was really concise. Great work, Scott. Okay, well, I think we're on the tail end here. We'll leave it open for just the last few minutes of this for any more questions that come through. But just know that everything that we've shared here today, from our presentation to all of the links that I've posted in the chat, will be sent to all of you afterwards. I also did put a way for you to stay in contact with us. The Midas Collaborative champions this network, and so we have a website that's available with more information should you choose to check that out. We have a newsletter. We'd love for you to join that and stay in contact with us. Thank you so much, Sheila, for that PDF in the chat. We'll make sure that gets added as well. One plug as well, too, if you'd like to stay connected with us to learn more about this topic, the Midas Collaborative will be hosting a summit, our 17th annual summit. It will be September 30th at Roxbury Community College this year, and that information will also be shared with this group. And we really just want to say thank you so much for listening to our message today, and we look forward to what's next with financial education.
Thank you to Glenn and MASC for allowing us to present this today. Glenn, I don't know if you want to add anything as a close or if we've said everything. You're muted, sorry.
The argument for equity is one that doesn't always get made, but equity means, in my understanding of this, equity would be an equal opportunity to learn about the skills that you will need as you get older. And I work for the school committee associations, but I used to work for AARP. And we dealt with a lot of people who got to a certain point in their lives and had no money.
Yeah.
And there are some people out there that spend it as fast as they make it, and there are people there that go right to the sports betting and blow all their money away. The education to have people make good choices is not equitably distributed.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's just an interesting angle to get equity into the question, and I saw that Scott did that, and that's an argument that a lot of people haven't heard yet. I throw that out there and promoting the issue.
It's a very good
Thank you,
point.
Glenn.
Thank
Yeah,
you
thank
very
you.
much, Glenn. Well said.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being here. This was really great. I can't wait, and I'm sure we're all anxious to continue the conversation with all of you. And
Yeah, if we didn't do this, the next time we do this, we'll record it and put it up on.
We did record it.
It's recorded.
We did. You are recording it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. If
beautiful.
there's a link to the recording, we can put it up on the website and people can come to it whenever they want.
Yeah.
We don't
That's perfect.
password our website.
Thank
And we
you
can
so
send
much.
people there. So,
Mhm.
great.